And I managed to say good morning and not good evening, so I'm
Yeah.
really proud of myself already. Bit of a new one, new time for us. Mainly my fault. Just really fancied a takeaway last night, I'll be honest.
Is that what it was? Is that what it came down to in the end?
I had to weigh it up as to what was more important, and the Chinese just overweighed talking about Leeds getting
Fair enough,
bumped.
mate.
No, I'm joking. So obviously a lot to get through. It's been a bit of a mental week. If you're joining us instead of watching the coronation, thank you, and we'll try and make it worthwhile. But obviously, if you are joining us and there is no coronation for you today because Leeds are playing, and that's what's more important, and you want to know all about what mental shit has happened in the Leeds United stratosphere this week, we will try and get into what has been one of the longest weeks I can imagine being a Leeds fan. But before we do that, Dad, welcome back. Nice to see you again. How's things?
No, it's all good. Lad is on his way to Anglesey with his girlfriend's family for a long bank holiday weekend. So unfortunately, the Sens couldn't be with us today, and you've just got me.
Well, we are happy to have you regardless, and I'm sure Lad will be back with us again one day. We've got more out of him, I'd say, in the last month than we have in the last 6.
You know
so
what?
He's done his fair share.
You're absolutely right. We should big ourselves up. We need this new Sam Allardyce kind of attitude where we are the best. We are better. You know, we should step up, shouldn't we? We're not. We're better than, I don't know, just Joe. We're better than.
No, that's a given, mate. Everybody knows we're better than just Joe.
Better than Gary Lineker on Match of the Day. Yeah, big Sam attitude. Big Sam Saturday is dropped.
We will be getting to Big Sam. I think we've got to start back at the very beginning first before we get to him. But can you believe it's only a week since we were hammered 4-1 by Bournemouth? And Jesus Christ. I don't want to get too much into the depression, but you have got to sort of pick up on where we are and where we have been. I think with the way that the Bournemouth game went, there was just no fight for me. There was no energy towards... I'd lost all belief in the players, in the manager, in the board. And I think the way that the away end turned, and God, this week's been so jam-packed full of information, we'll probably miss some of it out. But straight after the game, you've got the video of the guys in the hotel walking past the little boy, whether Big Sam feels like that's a cropped video and really wanted to point that out. But
you know what, it was great. There was a little bit of that with Big Sam where you felt really proud that we had a manager that stepped up to that. But then he killed it for me when he said, I haven't even seen it. And I was like, hang on a minute, you've just totally torn this reporter a new one for asking him about it. You've given him a load of legit, and then you go, you haven't even seen it. I mean, what?
He's a character, isn't he? But
love him for that.
We'll get to him. I think we could do an hour just on Big Sam, but obviously, as a result of the Bournemouth game, the fans, I'd say, have got what they wanted. Victor Orta is gone. What part he would have played in the rest of the season, I don't really know. So I don't really know whether I think the only reason he's gone is
he wouldn't have let him get Big Sam.
Well, okay, fair enough. That's true. I think
what it's come down to, Phil, with Orta is, and what Bournemouth just became for Radrizzani, just that this football project is absolutely dead. It was on life support anyway. Javi had that little plum start. You know, he got some points on the board. And then, Bournemouth was, you probably spent most of that day saying to ourselves, how have we even got to this? How has a football project got to what just went out on there? And I'd love to have, I'd love the Amazon show to be for this season, because I'd love to see how it's got that bad. But I think he just went, okay. And there was the tweet exchange, the direct message exchange that leaked, which, I mean, as great as it was to see that, it's kind of think, my God, you can't trust anyone. But it's kind of like...
Or can you?
Well,
that's the way I'm seeing it.
I'll go on. You think it's PR? You think Mooney was behind that?
I don't think Mooney's told Radrizzani to message Conor McGilligan and just say, "It's a good idea." But I think there'll be an understanding from Radrizzani when he sends that message to Conor that it isn't going to stay private, because he sent messages to Conor before and they've gone straight on Twitter before.
Conor, who is merging into Phil Foden. Did you see, Conor was outside Man City on his social going, filming something, and he looks like he was dressed as Phil Foden for the video. Anyway,
I'm not going to pretend I pay much attention to him.
Yeah, sorry, it's all these TV. All these TV.
I don't give a shit. It's fine. We still love you, Connor. Surely.
Oh yeah, big time. And then he's Phil Foden now. But it's kind of like, I think what happened there, Rads then went, look, if this football project is dead, it's absolutely flatlined at Bournemouth, which is funny when you consider that's where people do move to flatline, and then he's gone, okay, Google, stay up. Sam Allardyce comes up top in the search.
Yeah, I think there's definitely roads that we need to explore in this conversation, different ones. So I want to go into all of them. But
cool.
So obviously, as a result of the Bournemouth game, Orta's gone. The fans have got what they wanted there. Javi's gone. I'd say the fans have got what they wanted there as well. There's discussion, obviously, around the chat that's happened to bring in Big Sam, where we've heard from different sources now, Phil Hay, Graham Smith, loads of different people saying that it was because Orta essentially said he refused to allow the club to bring in Big Sam. He wanted Gracia to stay. Apparently, a very similar chat happened when they wanted to sack Marsh before the World Cup. You've heard chats on maybe like Square Ball, Phil Hay as well, that did also have too much power. And one thing I really want to get into, without going too far back, is just the idea of a football club and the way that you can bring a sporting director in. Obviously, we now haven't got one. Are we going to get another one in the summer? Are we going to stick with that model? Do we throw that model in the bin? I think most teams across Europe are using that sporting director or director of football model, and I think it is the right way to go. But I do think you've got to have a split of the responsibility. And the only thing that does worry me, and I'm not for a second here going to say I think Orta shouldn't have gone. I think the position was untenable already anyway, heading into Bournemouth. But the atmosphere around the club after the Bournemouth game, the only thing you could do was ask him to leave anyway. I'm surprised it came about just because he was so adamant that Gracia should stay. I think that was the fact that he was determined that Gracia should have stayed. Equally for me, like when he was determined Marsh would stay, he's mental. And it's just because he, similar to, Bielsa, and we love Bielsa for having that thing about him where that was his idea, that was what he stuck to. But when you can see it's going so drastically wrong, how can you just nail your colours to that mast and just, it's a weird hill to die on, isn't it? But what I want to get into with the football ownership and the structure is, for me, where this has all fallen down. And I think most people pinpoint one specific moment in time. Leeds United have just finished 9th in the Premier League under Bielsa. That summer, we completely stand still. It all falls to bits.
That's it. That summer, that's where it went wrong.
Exactly. That summer, we stand still and we don't back the manager. And for me, don't get me wrong, that's the point where, for me, I think these owners and this board shot themselves in the foot, and it's only now that they're actually starting to get the punishment they deserve for it. It's not finished, by the way. I think there's got to be more that happens over the summer. But for me, the bit that I really want to get into is, if you have a director of football, and when we move on in the discussion later to talk about what happens next, what's our long-term plan? For me, if you do bring in a director of football, Orta or whoever it is, your responsibility is to have a plan. And if you have a plan, the worst thing you can do as a director of football, for me, is the one thing that we did, not the standing still part, which is where it all begins to fall down. But if you believe in your plan so wholeheartedly, the Bielsa plan being that plan that was working so well for us, I understand when it got to the point where they felt like they needed to remove Bielsa, but to deviate so far from your original plan and then just throw it in the bin and go, right, I like that plan instead. And he just basically admired the Red Bull style and the Red Bull system, and he threw a perfectly good plan in the bin. And then now we've gone and done the same. We nail our colours to a completely different mast, the Marsh and the Red Bull mast. Year later, throw that in the bin after throwing stupid amounts of money at it. 10 minutes later, same thing again. Okay, we need the antithesis of Jesse Marsh, and we bring in Gracia, so it's all a bit calmer and a bit more sensible. 10, 11 games down the road, bang, throw that in the bin and go for the complete opposite again. And this decision, as much as I think a lot of people have now accepted it and come to the point where they can kind of get behind it, the Big Sam thing, and we will move on to him, but it is completely a show of we have no idea what we're doing. And for me, with Victor Orta, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I wish he was still here or anything, but you think of that boardroom for the last couple of years, and it's been Victor Orta who, whether you like it or not, was the football man in the room. Yeah, and now you've got Angus Kinnear, an accountant, and Radrizzani, a muppet.
No. You don't.
Neither of them know football.
You don't have that. No. You see, this is the thing. The everything you said there is on point with the director of football position and why it's good to have it. You know, you work in that industry. You know, you work with these director of footballs. You give them data. So you can see the benefit of that. I think to cut to the chase on the glory moment for Victor Orta was getting Bielsa. That was his glory moment. Okay. You might say Rafinha and some of the signings, but like, you know, having done this with you for so long on the podcast and on All Leeds TV, you know, you've always pointed out these players actually that Orta signed, the big ones like Raf, were on the radar. Yeah. You know, it may have been a surprise to me as a fan who doesn't watch that league, but, you know, these guys want to, the same with Sinistera and all those guys. There were obvious signings. There was no real genius behind it. And the big thing was him getting Bielsa. And if that was the disruptive to his plan, to Orta's place in this, because he brought someone in who knew what he was doing. He brought someone in who would go, he's not good enough. We're not signing him. Yeah, you know, I'm sure. I mean, we never know the specifics. Firpo's obviously the one we all go, hey, did Bielsa really like him? And Dan James seemed to be a legacy.
I think Dan James was a definite Bielsa signing, wasn't it?
Yeah, but maybe for the championship. Yeah. And, you know, and it's kind of like, well, better the devil you know. I need people in, and I know all about Dan James. Well, sign him in. So, yeah, he was a Bielsa signing, but he was scouted and being prepared to join a championship promotion team into the Premier League, and then, you know, work from there. What I think this says was our suspicions at the time was Bielsa was the guy in the room who knew what he was doing with the football project.
And they got rid of the most intelligent man in the room.
And they got rid of that. And we were all sitting there, you know, Lad. I remember saying to Lad, he was calling for Bielsa's head, as well a lot of people on this channel, because of that running. But that running was a snapshot. That running was a snapshot of a real tough era. And there's
within massive amounts of injuries at the time as well.
You know, and we should have stuck. What should have happened there is they should have stuck with him. But obviously, it went against Orta's plan. And then, you know, that conversation, because Orta's plan was Tom Christiansen, Paul Heckingbottom. You take Bielsa out. The next one's Jesse March, Javi Gracia, and then he's sacked. So
Bielsa is the only one that lasted more than a year, really.
He's the anonymous. He's the one who, and quite rightly, because of the man he is, it was different. He wasn't in the plan. He was never in Orta's plan, ever.
No, the question was originally, wasn't it? It was Radrizzani in the back of a taxi that said to him, if I gave you all the money in the world, who could you have? But that didn't mean that was, this is definitely the guy that I've been lining up. You know for a fact he had some other Darko Milanic hiding away in his back pocket. I didn't think he could get him.
100%.
I think for me, the idea of the way that football clubs work is there needs to be. Leeds United has been, for me, run on a shoestring budget, especially since we got into the Premier League. And I don't think you can scrimp and save and try and shithouse your way through by not spending anything. And don't get me wrong, I know people will say, well, we have spent money and most of it on Jean-Kevin Augustin. But I don't think that for me, I know the way that Forest worked is a consequence of the fact that a lot of their players left at the end of the season, but they spent a lot of money on a lot of players to fill out their squad. I would rather have seen us fill out that boardroom with people that know what they're talking about. If you are going to get rid of Bielsa, which, you know, whether you think we should or we shouldn't, I think I've always sort of made it quite clear how I feel on the subject. I always thought it was the wrong thing to do. But if you are going to do it, you have to have that plan in place to replace him properly. And I don't think that you can, and Big Sam kind of said it himself in his press conference about what can he get into these players between now and the end of the season. Nothing, because all you'll do is confuse them. Only a year ago they were on Bielsa, then they went to March, which is complete change. Then you've had Gracia come in, his his ideas can't get through either because there's too much, and now to introduce more is just a confusion for them all. So, I mean, I that's think where it's fallen down for me.
Well, Victor, it is, and where it fell down is the relation. Victor Orta didn't know how to work with Bielsa. He didn't know how to facilitate Bielsa with players. That Bielsa quite evidently knows more and has more experience. This isn't a slight at Orta. You remember, Bielsa's up there.
Bielsa's one of the most tactically intelligent men in the game.
So, and knows everyone. And he knows, his own coaches and scouts know what's going on. And I think that is where it crumbled. It's almost like, you see in workplaces that aren't football orientated where a talent comes in and he's better than the boss. And I think I don't know these guys well enough, but that is where it fell down. The relationship fell down.
Yeah, I think there was a definite power struggle between
the two. And you pull Bielsa out, and then the football project is a mess because Bielsa was holding that thing together.
Ooh. Luke has already name dropped the only person that I was immediately going to sort of say. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're going to go into it later on in the show of what you want moving forward. And I will get, guys, if you're in the comments and you have ideas as to who you think you'd like to take on that. Because Orta is one of those weird niche people in this industry that kind of became like a celebrity director of football. There's a few of them around that people
He was a character, though, wasn't he? He was a character.
Very divisive character, of course, with the way he's handled himself outside of that. Again, the other one that most people would go for as well has been now mentioned in there as well, Dan Ashworth, who's done a great job at Brighton. Then
I've got no idea who any of these people are. I can't pick. I honestly can't pick a director of football. I've got
the two that I think I would have mentioned have now been put in the chat. There's Stuart Webber, who's at Norwich. He's notoriously always said he is a Leeds United fan. He's the one that got them Daniel Farke, whether you like him or not, but he's got them up and down, up and down, up and down, and they are a yo-yo club. Should Norwich be a yo-yo club? Probably. And then obviously the one that most people would say is fantastic is Dan Ashworth. Did a great job at Brighton for a long time, got headhunted by the FA, taken over to England where he's worked with Gareth Southgate and St George's Park for a long time.
Is that where he's now?
No, now he's at Newcastle.
Well, we're not getting him then.
Our beloved Mike is obviously saying wants Mark Overmars out of Ajax, which would be... No, he's just been fired from Ajax, hasn't he? If I remember rightly, for something that he definitely shouldn't have done, but we won't get into that so that I don't get in trouble. I don't actually know who the director of football is at Brentford. Good thing you missed that bit anyway, Dad.
I kind of caught it. I think for some reason I dropped out of there, but no, I did. The guy, Mark Overmars definitely. I don't know. I think you might find it quite hard to get a job.
Yes.
Mike. Look, I don't have a clue, man. You'll be more tuned in for that because it's obviously more than just picking a first 11, isn't it? It's doing the project, and you know what? I think this is where we give Victor Orta a little bit of credit. He has bought some good young players. He's identified that is something you have to tip the hat to. Yeah, there's probably quite a few that he hasn't worked out with, but I think if you look at the under 21 element of it, and I reckon that's where he might end up being a specialist in for another club in Europe. Actually, I'm not quite sure.
I'll be very surprised if Victor Orta doesn't fall upwards. So for the one that I've heard a lot of is, here we go. Good morning, Joe. I hope you've not missed the first 20 minutes, mate. Your name's been mentioned a couple of times, but don't rewind, whatever you do.
Joe. We just went a bit Sam Allardyce, Joe. We got full of ourselves a bit and started slagging everyone, but we love you.
But no, Victor falling up. The Barcelona director of football, Matthew Alemany, is one
lost.
He's been linked with us.
Victor Orta's going to end up at Barcelona.
I'll put money on it now. Yeah,
get lost.
I put money on it right now. I will put money on it with you right now. At least a 5 or 10 or whatever you say. He's going back to Spain, and he's only going to a big club. There's no way that he doesn't end up. For me, I reckon he'll go Barca, and I reckon he will fall upwards. Whether we think he deserves it or not, mate, that club is a shambles. Could you really be surprised if they got him in?
I mean, yes. I mean, look, yeah, you're right. It's a shambles, but I still go, wow, Barcelona have just hired Victor Orta.
Like Alisson saying Sevilla, he was already at Sevilla when he was. Yeah. That's what I mean. So if you look at his CV over the last 10 years, don't get me wrong, Middlesbrough, I'm not making digs, but they're not a big club. But Sevilla's a massive club. They won the Europa League while he was there. He's obviously taken a quick excursion around Middlesbrough, but obviously then he's got Leeds back into the Premier League, and whether it's ended well or not,
obviously,
but I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up at a place like Barcelona. I really, really wouldn't. It could happen. Rumours he's going to Sevilla again, apparently. So either way, he's off back to Spain. Apparently, he was in Headingley last night. Brave man. But let's talk about Javi Gracia as well. I'm assuming you were at the same stage as most people, Dad, where it felt like it had to happen, because it only felt like it was going one way under Gracia after the Bournemouth game.
I mean, look, never mind the Bournemouth game. It was that shock at the Palace game that got us all. And, you know, you saw the destruction, rumours of when is it we get the McKennie revelation soon? I believe we get the McKennie revelation of what happened at halftime there. But, you know, anyone who was at Ellen Road or watching it on the telly, was it on the telly? It was, wasn't it? You know, it was horrific. And, you know, we just never pulled back from that. It got worse and worse. And look, I know everyone will go, oh, Liverpool, but we've shown we can do Liverpool. You know, I actually thought Liverpool at our place, we've always got a chance. And, look, he had to go. He just wasn't good enough. It was a bad signing at the time. And
I think he lost the players. Because they didn't look like they tried for him at all.
Did he ever get them? Did he ever get them?
Not sure.
Because it feels like the club.
It weirdly felt like they fought more for Marsh, which was they didn't fight much then.
Yeah, no, probably. I think it just this whole football project since that Bielsa walked out has just been crumbling and crumbling and crumbling. And his timing was at the moment it hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, look, again, lovely guy. Have you noticed? We were talking about me and Lad last night. If you look at all these managers, and now I know everyone's going to throw me pellets for saying this about one particular one, but the one attribute, all these managers, you know, take Bielsa out, you know, that have been the Auto project, lovely blokes.
Yeah, lovely blokes.
You know, Thomas Christiansen, hecking bottom. I'd love to have a pint with him. I think it'd be great crack. Yeah. Then you've got Jesse and Javi. There seems to be this kind of the recruitment in is who we feel, Orta feels, or you know, Angus and Rad are going to be great people.
Yeah, who would I go for a pint with? How we hire.
It's kind of willed, and that's Orta's mechanism is I will do the football part. This is the project. This is what you have to deliver. We're going to do Red Bull model. There you go. You be nice and just persuade everyone to do it and keep the team happy. I think that's essentially what happened until they took a punt on Bielsa, and Bielsa went, "All right, lads, everyone step back. I'll sort this out."
Yeah,
and we'll deliver the Bielsa project, which got us promoted, kept us in the league, but then we just didn't back that project. We didn't back it, and therefore, people like Javi end up back in the mix of a traditional Auto project with, hey, nice guy, but I've got nothing to have. My tools are rubbish.
Yeah, I think that the thing that's hurt, obviously, since Bielsa left, like the changes that he's made to the training ground have been ripped out and turned into a media press conference. Like they had the beds for the players. That's something that's in training grounds. In Barcelona will have that. Real Madrid will have that.
There's lots of things.
Yeah, there was so many things, and I think the one thing that the Square Ball touched on really well earlier this week when I was listening to them, they were saying that Bielsa brought with him a standard that everybody had to stick to, and ever since that has gone, so is the standard. Since he's not been there, they've let standards drop to the extent where, I mean, I don't want to call out individuals, but we're probably going to struggle not to. For me, the thing that really hurt watching the highlights of that Bournemouth game back, the first goal we concede, Luke Ayling walking from the halfway line, and then you saw later on in the day people posting that video from the Championship, I think it was Wigan or something, where there's 7 men just chasing back from 80 yards to close in on one people, and just like,
Phil, there's 4 elements that Bielsa got got absolutely spot on technical, and then there's physical. You know, look at those two elements straight away. Technical and physicality was top draw with players who were bang average. Then psychological and social. They're the four elements of a football team, and personal development. And Bielsa was superb at them. You look at Jesse Marsh, technical was horrific. And, you know, what we've seen, I think, this season is physically just nowhere near the races of what you need to be in the Premiership. We look unfit for a full 45 minutes of football compared to, you know, the likes of even Nottingham Forest and people like that. You know, we just don't look at the races. And psychological and social has gone out the window, as you can see, you know, what has happened this week.
Yeah.
And
they just don't look like they fight for each other at
all. Psychological and social is all Sam Allardyce can fix now.
Yeah. And that's something that he has had a long-standing association with. Like I remember a long time ago, I think I was probably about early 20s, but I bought his autobiography to read when I was on holiday. I think he was still in charge of maybe Sunderland at the time. And I never realized, like, he always took umbrage with people saying that Arsene Wenger brought the English game forward because he was doing the same shit at the same time, but no one talks about it, which I think he's kind of said enough times in different ways and nuances, and we'll probably move on to his press conferences shortly. But the idea to go from, and people will make the joke, but the idea to go from Marcelo Bielsa to Big Sam via 3 or 4 different managers in the space of time in 14 months just shows how badly this project has really fallen apart. And what do you think we do over the summer now?
Hey, you there, Phil?
Really still.
I'm back.
You're back.
I don't know. I don't know if it's me or your internet. I don't know what's going on. But hey, so what do we do in the summer? Was the question, right?
Yeah. So I was talking about long-term plan. I want to know what you think we should be doing with this ownership, because for me, this is only the beginning. Getting rid of Victor Orta, I think we need a new director of football in, but ownership for me has to change. Radrizzani said in that tweet to Connor that he's responsible. If you're responsible, whether we stay up or we go down, get yourself gone and let someone else come in and do the best thing for the club. And I think the temptation for him will be, if we go down, to stay, recoup his money and try and get us back up. But you, my friend, are not going to get us back up regardless of parachute payments. I really struggle to see the club being able to move forward with him still here. I think Angus will have to maybe hang on a bit longer, but I think there needs to be a hell of a lot of change, a lot of different voices brought in. Dad, what's your long-term hopes for the club in this summer?
Well, that was stay in the Premier League. I think it can be a Premier League project, but I think we're all in the whole Leeds fan universe. We're all in on the fact that we need miracles happening with our own results, and we need miracles to happen with others as well. You know, the game on Monday night is huge for us, and there's a few fixtures this weekend, obviously. But you know, we're in a position now where we rely on everyone else. What do we want long term? Look, if we stay up, Sam Allardyce stays. That's what's happening. It's as simple as that. Now, we may sell to the 49ers and Rad gets his money in. I think I have to disagree with you, Phil, on Radrizzani. I think Radrizzani is an outstanding chairman for us. I think he's been in the world, if you think what we've been through before and you look at other football clubs on how they're run, even to the likes of Chelsea nowadays, Radrizzani is a man who gave us back our club. He bought back everything we'd lost. He has invested. He's not the richest, but that's not his fault.
He can't take us any further.
Well, he was all in on Victor Orta. He was all in on that, and that's been his biggest.
He's still his boss, though. And if you're employing someone who's not performing,
that's his biggest problem. That's where he really fell. He was too in on that and followed the model that Orta said will lead us to the promised land. So that was his problem. So if we actually went down with him, he's probably just as good as anyone to get us back up. But it's kind of what we talked about earlier. Director of football, who is that? If we go down, we haven't got Allardyce. Allardyce leaves. So, what does that look like? And you could get excited. And, I think Graham Potter would be brilliant to recruit in and take Leeds back under a Radrazani era. I really do. I think, the money he would spend in that project would be great. But again, it depends if we bring in a director of football. The director of football is going to be a piece because I think that's what Radrazani wants to work with. Yeah. I think that's what he was comfortable with, hence why he gave Orta so much time. So I think there's going to be two elements here. If we stay up, reality is, guys, we're keeping Big Sam. Big Sam will stay, and then we're a Big Sam team. And we know.
I'll be honest. I'm with Scooby D2 here. I think it's 4 games and that's it. I don't think there's any way Big Sam stays, whether we stay up or we go down.
He 100% will. 100% will stay. Why would you get rid of him? He wants to stay. He even said it in his thing. I'm looking for a job.
I don't think he did. I think he said.
He says I want a job, and he's not going to get a bigger one than Leeds' size as a club.
No, to be fair to him, I've heard him say for well over 10, 15 years now that he has wanted this job. He's been interested in managing Leeds United for a very long time. So I'm not surprised that he took it. But he said himself, for me, it's 4 games. He's here for 4 games. And if the club want to keep him on, he's got to make that decision. It's not whether we want to keep him. He's got to decide whether he thinks it's a good idea to stay here or not. But for me, the reason that he is here is because we've run out of ideas. We've got no plan whatsoever. That is, and it's a bit like when Roy Hodgson went back into Palace. Don't get me wrong, he's done a great job. But Roy Hodgson at the age of 75, 76, it's not a long-term vision for your club.
No.
And the problem with Leeds United over the last few seasons, and Phil Hayes said it really well recently as well, is they've done all this planning for the future but they've had no eye on the short term, the immediate term, and they've never cared about the here and now. This is the complete opposite. We've taken care of the here and now by getting Big Sam in, but that throws the long term out of the window as well. And you have to have both. You have to be able to maintain what we've got at the moment, but also plan for the future. And that means that they need to go out and find someone that can do that in the summer. Because for me, as much as I'm not upset with Big Sam at all, I'm happy to have him, and I think he gives us a lot more chance of staying up than the last 2 or 3 managers have. Realistically, is it a long-term plan that whether we're in the Premier League or the Championship? No, it's not. And we need to be... I think those people that Orta had his eye on originally when Marsh left, the Iriolas, the Slots, if they are attainable, I think they're the people that we would go back in for in the summer, whether they're likely or not. But I'd be incredibly surprised to see us sticking with Big Sam one way or the other. If we stay up,
Big Sam staying.
For how long?
I know. Well, look, this is what I was chatting to Lad about last night. Is kind of what Big Sam represents is that your club is absolutely banjaxed. You bring him in and look at all the jobs he's had, or almost even Newcastle. It means your club is upside down, and he brings his stability to it. Like he did at Everton, all this. He brings a model, but then everyone gets unhappy with it. The fans get unhappy with it because it's not great. Now, this was the thing with Big Sam saying, if I was in charge of Man City, I'd be challenging for the title. He's probably right, and I actually heard.
You should be.
but exactly. But I tell you, here's the one thing with Big Sam that I think's great. One, he's a great fella. We've grown up with him. In his area, and it's like I remember when he got the England job. I think everyone's just really happy, even though we know his football models but we were all dead happy. But when you look at it, this whole is he better than Pep? Put it this way: would you put Pep? If you put Big Sam in charge of Man City now, would you think he won the league? Would you think he'd win the league?
Well, probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If you put,
I think you'd struggle not to with that squad.
If you put Pep Guardiola in charge of Leeds now, would we stay up?
For 4 games or for a full season?
No, 4 games.
4 games, yeah, maybe you've got a point. That doesn't mean he's a better manager than Pep.
But this is why you put Sam in charge, right? This is my whole point, because it is always short term. It is a short term solution. Like that, we've increased, even though I don't want him there because it means our club is banjacked and we have to deal with that, and it's horrible to see. We've got him in. We increased the miracle, but the miracle
he can't stay simply on one thing, and the same thing I said about Javi Gracia potentially being here at the start of next season. Leeds fans will not be able to get behind that style of football. We've only got 2 home games where we need to be able to put up with this football to keep us in the Premier League, and we'll be able to get behind that. But for a long period of time, it's Big Sam style of football. I know he himself would say, I'm not exactly what everyone tells you I am. I have got tactics as well.
Yeah,
I can do.
He's a great manager.
He is adaptable, but that style of football, and I think the one big difference, whether it's a strength or a weakness, is pragmatism that the other managers didn't have. Sam will be able to look at games like tomorrow and go, I'm not going to try and attack them because we'll get pumped. And I know Gracia was a bit more adaptable.
Today, you mean today?
Yeah, sorry, today.
Yeah, a few hours time.
I know Javi Gracia had that I'll change my plan for different teams, and it worked for the first few games, but Big Sam will basically try and make specific plans for certain games, and he will just sort of surrender. And like that Brighton game, me and you were down in the bar when Bamford equalised that Brighton game because we couldn't stand it. And over the course of a season, it ain't happening. We ain't going to be able to get behind that style of football. There'll be too few games where we actually take the onus upon us to go and win a game of football. And that for me is what contributed to, by the end, don't get me wrong, I've seen the Athletic interview with Javi Gracia now, and I've calmed down a bit after Bournemouth. But after the Bournemouth game, I was at the same level with Gracia as I was with Marsh. I'd gone completely nuclear. I'd got to the point where I'd just get him out. And lovely man, don't get me wrong, lovely fella, but completely the wrong fit for this football club.
Well,
I think Sam would be long term.
Yeah, well, look, I think the one thing Sam would have over is socially, we'd love him because of how he handles himself, and I think he's really leaned into that, hasn't he? Ever since he came on board, like it's been brilliant the attention he's put on himself.
Yeah,
I think Leeds fans love that. So I think he would last longer. I just know because of where Rads has been with the Orta project.
Yeah,
he then makes the decision to get rid of Orta, get rid of Gracia. Google stay up, bring Big Sam in.
I don't think that's what happened yet. I think he's the only person left in the room. He's the only person left.
But he'll love his own decision, Rads, of bringing in Allardyce. And he'll back
being the thing that kept us up.
I don't need a director of football right now because I've got Big Sam and what he has. And Big Sam will love the chance of taking Leeds United to mid-table glory next year. And then it's how we handle that. It'll be how the fans handle it. And so the timeline will be on that. Now, if we go down, it's completely different. Also, what might happen if we stay up, we might get bought by the 49ers. And as I've said on this show before, the 49ers are one of the biggest sporting brands in the world. They deal in success. So it would come down to whoever our new CEO chairman is decides whether or not we go with Big Sam or we go for a big name.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alison, for reminding everyone. I'll do it as well. Got 150 people watching live with us at the moment.
Nice.
So thank you for joining us anyway. Hopefully we'll help you get through the pre-match anxiety. If you want to put any discussion topics in there, we've got a running order to go through anyway, but we're happy to take questions. But if you haven't already, smash the like, subscribe to the channel, all that shit. Muchas gracias, and we will crack on. But yeah, let's talk about it now. I think we tried our best to skirt around, but let's go on to Big Sam Allardyce, a man that we will all have known for a very long time. Bolton Wanderers is the one that springs to mind, but people have this image of Big Sam where it is pump it long, Kevin Davis brings it down, knocks it on to Kevin Nolan, and that's the way. Andy Carroll amazing. With a flick on.
Because it was amazing.
Yeah, but
it was amazing. That Bolton side were unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean,
and people do forget there was JJ Okocha in there. There was Yuri Djurkaeff in there. There was Campo, Helguera. They went and bought loads of ridiculous players that should never have ended up at Bolton. Nicholas Anelka in his prime at Bolton. They were a great team to watch, and don't get me wrong, he'll have had moments where I know fans at West Ham weren't a big fan of him at the time towards the end.
But
Newcastle
it was
as
football.
well.
It was all the football. It was the football style that they can't handle. The Geordies wanted Kevin Keegan football still. The Geordies that have Kevin Keegan now. That's how deluded Geordies are. They're great. We're great fans, but like they would, if you said, "Do you want Kevin Keegan?" Even like 15-year-old Geordie fans would be going, "Why, man? Like get Big Kev back in." So he had Rodrigo. Lad mentioned that last night, and I forgot about it when we signed him. We'd known he'd been at Bolton, but Big Sam has done really well. At Everton, he was great. But again, the moaning Scousers hate that football.
Yeah,
and that's the problem. It comes down to Sam is how he plays football, and it's just so hard now, isn't it, to think it's going to be any different at this time. But again, Big Sam has increased the chance of a miracle of keeping us up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's the thing that he's got that is the reason that he's here is the fireman Sam thing. He is the person you go to in this situation. He said himself he was incredibly surprised and disappointed that the call didn't come sooner when we sacked Marsh. Yeah. And then obviously for it to come at this point, he kind of expected that the chance had gone. No Premier League clubs were going to be daft enough to try and change manager with 4 games left, but here we are. We could genuinely do about 3 hours just on those press conferences, but the bits to take out of them, I liked in the first one. For me, he called out Weston McKennie. For me, along with Mark Rocker, I think he was saying the reason that we've conceded so many goals is because our midfield hasn't helped out that defence enough, and the goalkeeper. And when he's spoken, and obviously we'll get on to lineup predictions, and that'll be an interesting chat in itself. But he's got big decisions to make, especially with the goalkeeper. But the defence and the midfield will be something that he focuses a lot on. Singled out Patrick Bamford for praise. Yeah. So obviously people will say, he's worked with Rodrigo before, but seems like Bamford's going to be the Kevin Davis to the Kevin Nolan here with the little and large thing up front. Really, it wouldn't surprise me if there is 2 up front, if it is Rodrigo and Willie as the 2, but I think we could see more like a 5 in midfield, bearing in mind it's Man City and he wants to pack that out. Yeah. But some very interesting things coming out of the press conferences as well. I mean, obviously the Pep and the Klopp and the Arteta quote is the one that everyone else has gone for.
Yeah,
I love this comment as he watched Bamford. Apparently, over the last few seasons, I think the thing with Big Sam is you've got to admire that he will say shit and then go, "I haven't watched it." That's just my opinion.
Yeah, great, isn't it?
He has got that Leeds Unitedness about him where we would be able to get behind him. I definitely agree with that.
Oh, absolutely.
The football would be a big struggle with, but Tim Mason's made exactly the right point here. The character in who he is, and he's big enough to walk into this club at the moment. Where we were last Sunday, I could have throttled each and every one of them players. Maybe Jack Harrison aside, maybe Nonto, maybe not. I'm not sure, but I hated them all. I was fuming with the lack of effort, and he has literally just come in with a massive umbrella and gone, "All right, lads, you just come stand behind me. I'll take it." And
he really has.
He is great at that. He's so charismatic.
I think again, going back to those 4 elements of football, which is physical, tactical, and then you get to social and psychological. Big Sam's awesome at that, and that's the main 2 elements he will be improving on. Tactically, I mean, I thought it was brilliant how he said Pep won't know how to deal with me because he doesn't know what I'm going to do. Well, I don't think Big Sam knows what he's going to do. Like, how can he? How can it be physically possible for him to know coming into this situation what he's going to do other than, like what you say, fill midfield on in a few hours' time? I think
he said it himself. The only plan you can really look at is Brentford. Because Brentford did it earlier this season. Hang in that fucking game as long as you can and hope that they get someone sent off and you can nick something last minute.
Yeah, totally.
And obviously we did it a couple of years ago as well.
Yeah, what is it? But yeah, he is all. It is. My point being is, it's all social. It's all going to be psychological. It's going to be all that. That's all we're going to see, which we will like, because if you look at who we've had Bielsa always had a translator. Jesse Marsh, we all wanted him to shut the hell up. And Javi hardly said anything. So, Big Sam is perfect for us on that front. The reality is the poor bloke hasn't got a chance with this team. It's destroyed. The football project is destroyed. Bournemouth was that. I'm not sure. We're going to get spanked today. We've got Newcastle, which weirdly I have some kind of hope with, but that's just my mental lead state where you all of a sudden convince yourself you've got hope, i.e. Bournemouth. And then for me is West Ham and Spurs at home, which you kind of look at. They may be Big Sam games. Big Sam may be able to battle those.
I want to go into those games, actually. So for me, I'm going to ask a question first, and I want everyone to put an answer in the chat, yes or no. Do you think at this point in time, Big Sam keeps us up? And Dad, if you had to just flip a coin now, yes or no, do you think he keeps us up?
No.
And again, that's no reflection on Big Sam. It is a reflection of the situation he's walked into. But as the table stands at the moment, so we've got Southampton, who are bottom on 24 points. You'd have to consider them virtually gone already, but they play Forest, of course, on Monday night. So far, the only answers we've had to that question: no, and no. Thanks, lads. David, thankfully, someone says yes.
Yes, David.
We're going to keep flashing up your answers, so keep sending them in. But obviously, Everton a point below us in 19th on 29 points. And then there's us, Forest and Leicester, all joint on 30 points. West Ham probably already out of it on 34. Now, the West Ham one's interesting, and I'll come back to it. But obviously, this weekend, the games
Phil,
that are going on...
Your mic, man, you need to move your mic a little bit. It's like...
back.
Like it's scraping along your hairy chest or something. It's
I don't have a hairy chest.
Liar. I've seen.
So obviously Bournemouth are safe now, but us and City, you'd probably predict it's only going to go one way. Wolves, Villa, not affecting us. So nothing today really that affects us. But tomorrow, West Ham obviously played City in midweek. They play Man United tomorrow.
Come on, the score.
Then they have their first leg of their game away in Amsterdam on Tuesday. Yeah. Then they play Brentford. Then they play their second leg of their European tie, and then they have us. Between that time, we only have City. We have 2 games. They had 5 between the 2 meetings, including the City game, obviously, the other night. Brighton play Everton on Monday, Fulham play Leicester on Monday, and Forest Southampton's huge for us. So by the end of the weekend, we might have a pretty good idea of where we're going. But we need to hope, weirdly enough, that Southampton beat Forest. I think if Forest take any points, I'm going to give you all the games for every team. At the moment, West Ham are on 34. I don't see any of the teams below West Ham now getting past that 34 mark. So Southampton would need to basically win every game. They've got no chance. The only game they've got left that's probably winnable is that Monday night game against Forest, and that's away. Yeah. They've then got Fulham at home, Brighton away, Liverpool at home. They ain't picking up more than 4 points, and that's not getting them past Everton. So you've got to think that Southampton are gone. Everton have got Brighton away, City at home, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home on the last day. So they could maybe get 4 points out of those last 2 games.
I think they're getting 4, yeah.
I don't see them getting anything off Brighton and City. Those 4 points would take them on to 33. Yeah. Then obviously Forest, their games, Southampton at home on Monday is massive. Chelsea away, which normally you'd think they should be losing, but it is Lampard, so you don't know. But then Arsenal at home, you'd think Arsenal still should be beating them in that. Yeah,
they will.
But Palace away on the last day, again, I'd still say Palace should beat them. So how many points can Forest pick up?
I think they'll get 6.
6? I wouldn't go more than 4.
No,
Do you think that it's because they beat Chelsea?
I think they beat Chelsea.
But that's the thing. We need Southampton to take at least a point off them, because if they pick up more points than us, I think Leicester's last 4 games, they have Fulham away on Monday, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, and then West Ham at home on the last game of the season.
Yeah, I think they get 4.
I think they get 4. So we need Forest or Leicester to pick up less points than us. And Big Sam was saying in his press conference, we need 6 points. Sorry, he thinks we get 2 wins.
Yeah.
Man City away today, Newcastle at home, West Ham away, Tottenham at home. Before Sam Allardyce came in, I'd say none because we look like we're losing all of them. But City away, I think it's down to the 3 games. Could we get something against Newcastle at home? You'd take a point. West Ham, because of that fixture pilot, they've got 5 games before we play them. Well, 4 now after that City game's gone. But hard games, travelling away in Europe, and then us. That could be the one that you point out and go, we need 3 points there.
I'd love to be there. I tried getting a ticket for us yesterday, but no.
And Tottenham at home on the final game of the season. I think that one should be something that we're looking again and saying we've got to try and get something out of it. A couple more yeses coming in. Mikey, Tim, they both think that we are staying up with Big Sam. I think the one thing that you said earlier, Dad, is we definitely have more chance of staying up now that he's here, and you've got to feel more confident because he's here. But points-wise, it's got to be 34. West Ham, I don't think are going to get dragged into it. It's got to be 34 or more. And do you? I mean, the obvious question is: do you think there's any chance of any sort of miracle that gets us anything today?
Not today.
I don't want to ruin score predictions. But
but I think what we're looking for today is an improvement in performance, right? I think that's what everyone is. I think Sam might have even said something like that, but I think that's just the reality. We need
a reaction.
Than what happened at Bournemouth, right?
Yeah.
There's just something about that Newcastle fixture that gets me excited. You know, there's something about that where I think we could maybe do a bit of housery around them. And the West Ham one, you know, I think I can see is possibly round. I think we might get 5 points. I think we might get 2 draws and a 3-pointer under Sam.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure any of this is going to be enough. You know, whether it be goal difference or point. I just can see those guys at Nottingham Forest getting 6 points, and I believe it will be Everton and ourselves that join Southampton.
I think Everton and Southampton.
Can we get the 6? Can we get the 6? Can we get the 6? That Big Sam says. So, you know, that's a win against West Ham. It's a win against Spurs. It's going down to the last 2 games, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, the last 2 games for me are the only 2 that you look at them and you think that there is a chance of points. I think if you look at the next 2 games, the idea of getting 6 points from Newcastle and Man City, no chance.
I'm going to try and, do you know, the thing is about today, I'm going to try and play this because there's some really kind of naughty words said at the start. So let me just see if I can get this. But this is off a City fan who I think we've had on the show before. Let me see if I can get this up.
He said we've got
Here we go.
James Brown.
Here we go. Ready? You ready for this? This is what he said.
Expecting to hear your voice.
Here we go.
Say hello to James Brown.
There we go.
It was someone else.
There you go.
Anyway, love you to bits, pal. But I hope we give you a good hiding today. We need to win this title. See you soon.
So you can hear what the City fans want today. They need to win.
They're going to want to win every game anyway. But
this is kind of what they're seeing is you flip it. It's this. I think we might see a really strong City side come out today.
Yeah, well, they've got Madrid away on Tuesday,
but they'll just want momentum now, won't they? They'll just.
Do they need it?
I think they do. I think we'll see a really strong City side come out.
They're already a point clear of Arsenal.
Yeah,
with a game in hand, and Arsenal are playing Newcastle tomorrow. So. The title race is pretty much over. Don't get me wrong. Man City are not going to take their foot off the gas. They never have.
This is what I mean, mate. But this is exactly what I mean. I think they're now in for the
of course. And Erling Haaland breaking that record is not going to make him stop.
Haaland will play today. Rodri will play today.
Of course. I think Calvin will get minutes. I think Rodri and Haaland will be taken off maybe on the hour mark, but they are going to come out full strength. I'd be very surprised if not. We'll move on to lineup predictions and score predictions and everything. But before we do, I'll just give you some wonderful statistics that you might like about Leeds and Allardyce travelling to the Etihad. So Allardyce has played Man City 34 times, only won 6 of them. He's lost 17 of the last 22 against City for all the different teams he's managed.
Jesus.
And in his last 10 visits to the Etihad, he's taken 1 point.
Now, the one thing I always say to Lad when he pulls out stats like this, and it's
they've got to change eventually.
It's got to change one at some point, right?
But it did.
It's got to change at some point.
But we won at the Etihad only like a year and a half ago. It was 2 years ago. Sorry, the Stuart Dallas one. But on that, the Leeds United side at Man City, obviously we've only ever won 2 Premier League away games at Manchester City. One of them was that Stuart Dallas one 2 years ago, and we haven't won at the Etihad more than once. But we did win at Main Road. I'm going to tell you the score. I'm going to tell you the manager, and I want you to give me the goal scorers. We beat Man City 4-0. It was 2001 at Main Road. The manager was David O'Leary, and there's going to be one of the goal scorers. I'll give you 2 of them, Lee Bowyer and Alan Smith. I want you to name one more, and I'll give you a big clue. He's going to be on the bench today.
What? You have totally messed with my head there.
Robbie Keane was on the score sheet last time we beat City away.
That's a great start. I love it.
I enjoyed that one myself.
That's a good one, mate.
One thing I did want to ask you before we get on to lineups.
Limbs for that. You get limbs for that.
A couple of people got it as well. I'm assuming it's because I said he was on the bench there. Yeah, people get that. But did you not enjoy in the press conference when he was talking about where he's bought Robbie Keane in from? And he was basically like, did a great job at Soccer Aid, and he knows the club. He just said all the cliches no one wants to hear.
Gordon Ramsay up front. We'll throw him up for Robbie Williams at centre back.
Within about 5 minutes, I had about 10 messages saying, "Oh, Usain Bolt on a free." Yeah. Loads of people.
Honestly, that was awful. That was awful. That was a bit of Big Sam. that is when he's not working with your club you love about him, because he's
how to kill a man's credibility.
But it's like,
just to answer Tim's question, yes, Allardyce has played Big Sam
lost
before.
All games, right?
Yeah, lost all 4. But I think the scoreline is like an average of like 4 goals per game he's conceded as well. This is one that I think everyone wants to see. If Bill Ayling does score a goal, they have to do one together, don't they? Or if we stay up on the last game of the season,
I wondered, is there any chance we could kind of like just sign him
Robbie
as a
Keane
player coach and just throw him on, like, and see that? I mean, I would have liked that a lot more.
Get him up front with Bamford instead.
Yeah, why not? That would have been great. I loved Robbie Keane at Leeds. I loved that, even though he hardly played. I just loved it when he did. He was such a the Ipswich game was outstanding. Him and Harry Kewell up front was awesome.
Well, it gives away my age to be able to say he was my first like proper childhood hero that I idolized. Got him on the back of the shirt. My obsession was number 7, and I used to hate. I couldn't say that I liked David Beckham until he left Scum and went to Madrid. But I used Robbie Keane as my reason to love the number 7. When I scored goals, I used to do the celebration. So I was like 7, 8 years old when we signed him, and obviously we only had him maybe like 18 months. And he
was great when he played. He was great when he played, but obviously
he scored nice goals as well, chipping keepers and little lobs. Great player. So yeah, lovely to have him back. Let's go on to it then. Let's try and predict this lineup, and he's got a hard job on his hands, hasn't he? I think with the first call has been all season long. We've all said, right, everyone going Melio. Yep. I'd love to see in the comments how many people would have the balls to drop Illan Meslier. I had the shout a couple of weeks ago where I said, I don't think you can drop him. He's got to stay until the end of the season. It's Man City away. The boy's confidence is absolutely shot to bits. Is there any point letting him concede another 6 or 7?
I think that's the line. I think that's a big Sam. I think it's obvious what he will get given to him by the coaching staff is he's the best keeper in the club. But what they'll say to him is his head is a mess. So why put him in the firing line at City? Get Robles in position. And Phil, you and me saw how we had a great view of how rubbish he was when we went to Cardiff away, didn't we?
I'm not a fan.
We're going to concede. We're going to concede at least 7 today. So, I think it'd be smart. Again, remember what I said about Sam. It's all about psychological and social for him, and he'll probably protect. Mez. So I mean, starting lineup, I think is pretty obvious, and he more or less said it right.
Yeah, I think he has kind of given the game away. I think he will rest Meslier. I think it will be Robles. I think the back four is going to be interesting. So obviously this
you're going for a back four. You're going for a back four.
This is brilliant. Give Mez first 5 at 45. Take a look at how Robles ready. What I'm assuming? No, you're not going for a back 3 or a back 5. Please, we're fucking awful with a back 3 or 5. Did you not see the Bournemouth game?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah.
Can't have a back 5.
Let's go. No, I'm not. I'm going back 4. I'm going back.
So the injury news. Obviously, we know long-term injuries. Stuart Dallas, Tyler Adams, Sinister out for the season. But yeah, Liam Cooper out for this game. Max Verber is apparently available. So big calls to make. We'll start at right back.
Okay.
Where the fuck do you go? There's only one of 2.
It's Ayling, but totally based on. I think Big Sam will like his attitude.
I think the only thing that makes me think Ayling is the whole leadership thing. He was
captain. Yeah.
One line that he said in the press conference that I picked up on was, people find it difficult to lead when they're out of form themselves.
Yeah.
Referring to that Bournemouth game, and I think it will be Luke Ayling, but he will try to plough some confidence into him. Although at the same time, I would still say Rasmus Christensen. Don't get me wrong, I can't. I think he's terrible, but I think he's more. Forward. I think he's more of a Big Sam player than Luke Ayling. That's all he does. He just pumps the ball up. He just pumps the ball up the line aimlessly, which is all we're going to have to do today. I think the weakness to both of them all season defensively has been pace going back. If you start the line deep enough, and don't get me wrong, we are going to be camped on the edge of our own area. Don't have either of them two running back towards their own goal, and you take
how
away
many times have you seen Rasmus just not knowing where the hell he is or where his player is?
Yeah, of course.
That's the thing. That's the bit that does it for me. And I think I'd rather risk Ayling, because you're right. They've got the same weaknesses, but I think Ayling has just got more than him. And that isn't saying
there has to be a lot more effort from Luke Ayling than I saw last week.
Make him captain under Sam Allardyce, and I think we'll see a different Luke Ayling. He'll still be terrible defensively, but I think you might see a little bit more leadership and step up on that front. So I reckon we should lock in Ayling at right back.
Okay, Ayling at right back. I mean, I've gone in. If you haven't already, blog's out on Twitter. Have a look at the blog. My predicted lineup's in there, but I'm reading it off there. No, anyway. But centre back pairing. So we'll do both of them. I'll be honest. I thought Robin Koch was pretty shambolic as well at Bournemouth, along with everybody else. But is there anything that you can throw in to replace it? I think Max Verber, for me, against Bournemouth, didn't look fully fit, and I'm incredibly intrigued to see who can start as centre halves, because Verber for me doesn't look 100% fit. Who would you stick with, Koch and Verber? There is Pascal, who obviously got dropped a while ago for being out of form, but what would you do?
I'm going Koch and Strike in back 2, and there's a reason. What I think Big Sam's
Verber at left back.
Nope. No. I think Firpo walks in. He gets
I'm the same. I've got Firpo at left back. I'm just intrigued as to whether you're now going to shove Max Verber in midfield.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, fair enough.
He's going to be the one. I think Verbs is going to be the one. I think weirdly this is going to look like 4-3-3, so it looks really attacking. But I don't think it's going to be an attacking formation.
No.
I think 2 players may one player definitely will be allowed a free rein, but I think this whole thing will be geared up to destroying the midfield of Man City, breaking that down, and also their back 4.
See, I
do 4-1-4-1, don't they? That's how they play. 4-1.
Well, no, at the moment, City have been doing a 3-4-2-1 with John Stones like in midfield, haven't they? So the same thing that Liverpool have been doing, tucking the right back into the midfield. So they've had I'm expecting.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, Kyle Walker has been playing, even though there was that interview earlier in the season from Pep saying that he doesn't suit the system. So for me, I'm expecting maybe Walker to come out, but back three of Akanji, Ruben Dias, Nathan Ake, and then you four across midfield, Mahrez and Grealish on either side of Rodri and John Stones, and then Alvarez and Bernardo Silva as your 2 10s behind Haaland, which the whole thing just makes you shit yourself, doesn't it?
But totally just.
For me, I've said
now, I know I look calm, but I've just had an accident.
And their bench again, you've still got Calvin, of course, on the bench, Gundogan, Foden, Kyle Walker, Laporte.
Okay, stop it.
But I actually think we'll stick to a similar formation. Not that we played at Bournemouth, of course. That horrible 3-4-3 was ridiculous. But what we were basically playing for the vast majority of the season, the 4-2-3-1 bit will be a lot more defensive. So I'm expecting an extra man to be put into midfield. So I've gone as the two sitters. I'm saying it'll be Mark Rocker and Adam Forshaw sitting. And then because of what Big Sam was saying about defensive work rate being something that we're going to need, he basically said each player, all 11 players, have to be doing their job and defensive duties when we're out of possession, because we're going to be out of possession for a lot of the game. That's what makes me think that perhaps a player like Rodrigo, as much as, he put the effort in definitely at Bournemouth and the previous games in charging around the pitch. I think Rodrigo might come out. I think Somerville might come out. McKennie might come out. So I think Forshaw will come into that 2 instead of McKennie. And then as much as people might hate to hear it, I think Brendan Aronson, for his defensive work rate, will come in. And then him, I would have Harrison and Nonto because he likes inverted wingers. So I'm assuming it's a midfield 5 for you.
It's essentially that. Yeah, I wrote it out as almost the 3. Now, interesting, I put Verber in there, like I said, sit in if you imagine the horseshoe with that 3 in midfield, he'd be the one who stayed in the middle. And then I had Forshaw in there. But here's the one, and listen to the theory behind this. I think Aronson won't start because I think he's just too lightweight. I think Allardyce and everyone will go, this guy isn't fit enough for the Premier League. I think Rocker will fall out of that for defensive reasons and stats. And I think, believe it or not, even though there was a dig at him, I think he'll start McKennie in that 3. And the reason is because McKennie will, if he's got one attribute, is throwing himself about and getting into tackles. And I think what he might say to McKennie is, man, Mark Rodri, or whoever plays that role, and just be on him. Don't do anything else. Just stay on him all the game. Don't let him loose. And have Verber and Forshaw moving around more as a pairing, and have McKennie on that player, on Rodri. So that's kind of what I think will happen. And I'm with you totally. Somerville doesn't defend enough for Sam in this scenario. So I think it will be Harrison and Nonso who like exactly what you said.
Yeah, the inverted wingers. I think, to be honest,
Bamford.
I think it is going to have to be Bamford just because he's name dropped him in both press conferences.
Yeah.
So I think that's incredibly unlikely to be Rodrigo.
And I think he'll use Bamford. He'll say Bamford always drop, and as soon as those centre halves get anywhere near the centre circle, you press.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think if I could now, I'd like to go back and sort of. The only thing is, would I put Pascal into centre back so that I could move Max Verber into that midfield, and like you said, have that 3 Rocker, Forshaw, and Verber protecting that back 4. I think that's not a bad idea at all. So you have that as a 3 behind, and then obviously Ayling, Koch, Pascal, Firpo as your back 4. There's no, because he also said to Phil Hay, didn't he, Sam Allardyce, in that question, no square pegs in round holes. They will be all in the right places. So you've got a right back at right back, 2 centre backs at centre back, a left back at left back, 3. Well, Verber is a centre back or a left back, so him being in midfield would be But either way, like I like the idea of Rocker,
he's essentially being a centre back.
Yeah,
he's essentially being a centre back in that movement because he's got to think of that front line of what you've just talked about of City. We need to be able to pick them up. So he will be, if you imagine that midfield as with Forshaw and my choice, McKennie in the centre. If you imagine a horseshoe, he will always be in that bit at the bottom. So he's playing a centre back. He's doing what Calvin Phillips used to do.
I think most Leeds fans would hope if anyone was coming out of that, it would be McKennie. I don't think many people want to see much of him anymore.
I just think McKennie is going to end up staying in there because of his defensive. I know it sounds mad when you think about how poor he's been when playing in that system of the two, but I think he'll be pushed up further into that midfield, and he'll be on Rodri or whoever that position is. And I think he'll just go. Big Sam will just say, absolutely stick to Rodri all game. I don't want to see you leave him.
Yeah, I could see Forshaw being the man given that job. It's something that Bielsa's used Forshaw.
I just think is McKennie's a bigger, stronger unit than Forshaw.
It's a bigger, stronger unit than most people.
Hey.
So that means obviously on the bench, Meslier we expect will be on the bench, but options to bring off the bench if obviously Pascal maybe in, maybe out. Rasmus, we've both got Rasmus on the bench, McKennie maybe, or Aronson, depending on which, but Somerville off the bench, Rodrigo off the bench, Ruta off the bench. But it's just how many attacking options are actually going to be brought on, and what are you going to rely on? Rasmus, Sam Greenwood, Mateo Joseph, like it is hard to see what changes he makes if it's go. I think the main thing has to be, like we've said earlier in the show, damage limitation. Try and stay compact. And the one thing we need to avoid, which happened at the City home game, we played so well for that first 45 minutes. Board goes up for stoppage time, bang, sucker punch. There was 1 minute of stoppage time. They had to hold on for 1 minute and 30 seconds into the stoppage time, and we've conceded that goal before half time. If we can keep it 0-0 till half time, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and say we can do a Brentford or we can do a Stuart Dallas jobby. But guys, we will move on to the score predictions. Start firing them over and we'll flash them up.
Yeah.
If we can stay in the game till 0-0, and I'm sure, Dad, you'll say the same and get your limbs mobile ready.
Ready.
Don't get it for me, get it for you, because I'm not going to say I'm positive. But if we can stay in that game for long enough and just try and nick something, is there a chance? I mean, no. I'm assuming people sending things in like Allison's here, 5-0.
Is that 50? Is that 50 goals or 5-0?
All for Haaland, yeah. No, that's to City. Carl's saying 1-1. So that's not a bad shout.
Limbs.
Dad, what do you think? What's your prediction for today?
I genuinely do believe, even with Big Sam in there, I just don't think he will have had much time to fix how broken this squad is. I think there will be a gap of 7 goals.
Oof, that's depressing. No wonder you didn't press the limbs button. How many of those does Haaland score?
Yeah, exactly. I think Haaland first half double brace, and then he'll be subbed.
Fuck it, I'll get your limbs button ready for this one.
Oh, is it? Where?
1-0, 95th minute, Bamford header.
Verber, it'll be Verber. Oh, header. Hey, yes, Matt Leeds, love it.
That's a good point from Michael, actually. Big Sam did say when he was asked about Haaland, he basically just said, there's nothing we can do to stop him. We've got to stop what's coming into him. But the person bringing shit into him is Kevin De Bruyne. So
exactly. This is kind of it. I look at that, right, and I totally agree. And that's what we've tried to do with our formations. But even sitting here, we're relying on Forshaw, Verber, and McKennie, possibly Harrison
stopping De Bruyne. Another one, Dad. Another 1-0 lead.
Yes, Alex. Get in there, limbs. 1-0.
Someone's happy with the music. But, I mean, for me, I'll be honest, if you watch the West Ham game the other night, or even just the highlights, they obviously conceded the first off a set piece, which, Allardyce himself said that Moisey would be a bit disappointed with. But Michael's just said exactly what I was going to say. Keep it to what West Ham did the other night, 3 or less. I definitely agree with one of the previous comments that if it was still Javi Gracia in charge, I think we would have broken the record. The record, obviously, Premier League being 9-0, I think it would have been double figures. And I can see Haaland scoring at least 5 of them. But if we can keep it down to keep it to 0-0,
really
0-0 at half time.
Keep it down, because that goal difference is between Everton and Forest in particular.
Yeah.
That could save us. So if we imagine if it was just 1-0.
Our goal difference at the moment, minus 24.
1-0's limbs.
At the moment, goal difference is all that's keeping us out of the bottom 3. Leicester's is obviously better than ours, so minus 13 for them, minus 24 for us, minus 32 for Forest. So if we were to lose 7 or 8-0, then obviously we'd drop in there anyway. But you've got to protect that as best as possible. Everton's is minus 25. So
if we only lose this 1-0, I'm celebrating like we won the game. I want to see limbs on the pitch. I want to see that end where the Leeds fans are celebrating if it's just 1-0, because that is a result and a half. Just to lose 1-0 would be amazing. In our scenario, that'd be, I'm getting Big Sam Hawaiian shirts made. It's if we lose 1-0, that'd be great. Unfortunately, I just think this City team is unbelievable, and they want a win. They want that win to pull away, and I think we'll start with an amazing squad.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like this. There's no shame in being hammered by City. They will do it. The best team. They are probably they're probably the best team in the world, and they're probably one of, if not the best footballing sides we've ever seen in the Premier League. So I think, like we've said today, damage limitation. It's a case of getting ourselves out of this rut and putting on some sort of performance, showing a bit of heart. And, if we lose the game based on quality, that's fine. But give us something, build a platform for us to take into the final 3 games. And then, too cliched, but got 3 cup finals to try and keep ourselves in the division with a manager that we have some sort of faith in to be able to do that. It's been a hectic week at Leeds United. And I don't want to be the person that says, we've done daft shit like this before. We've gone there and we've won, but weirder things have happened. Don't get me wrong, I don't expect it, but we've had some positivity.
Big Sam Saturday.
We've had more positivity in this chat than I expected.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, all I can say, guys, thank you very much for sticking with us. If you haven't already, do the usual, smash a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm hoping we've given you a good hour or so's worth of entertainment that's going to help slow down that anxiety for 2 o'clock coming and that lineup coming out. But hopefully that 2 o'clock lineup announcement won't be anywhere near as depressing as it has been for the last few weeks. And I personally, Dad, I'm going to ask you in a sec where you're going to be watching, but I'm going to be sat down for once. Normally I'm up and I'm marching around. I can't sit still. I know for a fact today I'm just going to sit there and just take it in because I've got no hopes. So where are you going to be watching the game today, Dad?
I'm just here. My telly is to my left. My plan is I've got to paint a front room. As you know, Phil, I'm living in a hellhole right now, and I need to sort that out. Hence why Lad never comes around anymore. And then I would just be sitting on the wrong side of the Pennines here. I think I might go get some tinnies for it, and just take it all in. Take it all in. I think Big Sam Saturday. I'm excited for Big Sam Saturday.
Let's leave it on this positive note here. Ted's going to see us out. If Leeds score first, they can do it. So
if Leeds score first, we might only lose 7-1.
Always got to spoil it, haven't you?
Hey, we'll go out on limbs. Let's go out on limbs. Go on, Big Sam Saturday. Oi, oi, oi.
Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Thank you for joining us, Dad, and enjoy the game, guys. We'll be back over the weekend, hopefully with more content. Hopefully no one having any meltdown because we've been dicks, but fingers crossed we'll be back again with more big match previews before the Newcastle game with happiness. We can predict a win then, can't we? So all good.